Welcome to Ngozi Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, wherever you may be. My name is Nomsa Clara Mngube. I'm the founder of Hope Spring Eternal Introduction Agency and the founder of Ngozi Talk Shows. And I'm a love harmonist. So today I have Dr. Biget. Over to you, Dr. Biget. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Good. Thank you, Numsa. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Right here in the US, it's 5 a.m. in the morning. And so bright and early. So let me ask you this. Would you love to have an awesome relationship that is just magnificent, the way you love it in every manner, and it happened easily and gracefully and completely effortlessly and with a lot of fun? And it could be a relationship that you already have and it just bloomed even more, and it could be bringing a loved one into your life. Would you love to have that? Let me ask you a second question. Have you ever have time when somebody crosses you, or life perhaps in general seemingly crosses you, where it's hurt you in your feeling and in one way or another? Well, we're gonna share today on what being able to let go of those has what to do, how that has to do with you being able to create your relationship that you love and make with a lot more ease and a lot more fun, and everything goes smoothly. And so that list up so you too be able to create a relationship that you love easily. And I'm Dr. Burjit Tans, a grief transformation coach, where I help transform heartbreak and disappointment, regardless of how severe it is, to something that you love. And we'll share one of the key points today.
Thank you so much. Dr. Biget. So basically, Dr. Biget has basically mentioned the topic basically for today is how to forgive somebody when it hurts. So are you someone who has been hurt before? Are you ashamed of your scars? Are you allowing people to label your scars because you feel basically you don't want to talk about it, you're ashamed of it? Or are you actually telling your story out there, helping others? Are you someone who is helping others by telling your story about what really happened and embracing your dysfunction life, embracing what you've been through? So we're gonna be talking about it today. Over to you, Dr. Biget.
Yeah,
How do I
love.
forgive basically when it hurts? So
I
everyone will be watching right now will be saying you are telling me to basically to actually forgive, but I'm hurting. So over to you, Dr. Biget.
Yeah, I would say a few things about that. First of all, you want to allow yourself. You want to allow your feelings. You want to allow yourself to acknowledge that you are hurt. We're not talking about being Pollyanna. I'm so much not being Pollyanna as some, even though sometimes people say that you're so positive, it sounds a little bit Pollyanna. It's not. We're not being Pollyanna, and even just as importantly, we're not recommending, or I don't recommend ever something that I call spiritual bypass. And spiritual bypass is saying things like, I really am hurt, and I am feeling like I'm being hurt, emotionally, and sometimes even physically. But then we say, "Oh, you know what? Well, grateful about what have you," and then brush that away. Or, well, there is a reason because the person don't have the awareness, whatever the heck. It's a new spiritual bypass. You are not comfortable. It doesn't feel right to your core, and you using this whole thing as brushing it away. That's not what we're recommending in here. So the first thing I actually say is, if you truly hurt, is to actually acknowledge that, and to be curious to start with, and to say, okay, this really hurt me. And why is that? Is that because there is a part of me that is triggered, or this is really something that is just not appropriate, and sometimes perhaps when you see it abusive, and so you want to get yourself in a safe place if you're not safe. But if you are safe, and then it's you are hurt, so first is to allow it, to acknowledge and say that I'm really hurt in here. I just, if somebody say really violates you in one way or another, causes loss, you want to acknowledge that, and then to remember this, the second thing that we're talking about, how to forgive, to know that two things: forgiveness is never about anybody else. Forgive, the word forgive means to give for. What are you giving for? To give space for love, and to give space for yourself to be able to be better. And the third thing, that and we can explore more on that, but the third thing I would want to say is to actually know that forgiveness has absolutely nothing to do with agreeing or approving. It has absolutely nothing to do with agreeing or approving. It's letting go. It's letting go of your wish. It's letting go of your wish that things happen differently, so you are free to move forward in love and all other aspects. It's letting go of your anger or guilt about other people or yourself, because at the end of the day, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. For be a huge part of it, letting go of your anger or guilt, as Numsa says, feeling guilty, feeling ashamed, and letting go of that, and therefore you'll be able to have a cleaner slate, so to say, to be able to welcome love and live in love. What's your thought about that, Numsa?
I agree with you, Dr. Biggett. Forgiveness is not about basically, like you were saying, that you have to acknowledge you're hurting. And when you acknowledge that you are hurting, because what happens is when people acknowledge that actually I'm hurting, they end up blaming themselves, or they end up blaming the list goes on. When you've been hurt by one person, you end up basically your mind start wondering. And I also agree with you when you say forgiveness has got nothing to do with the approving. Basically, you don't have to prove to somebody else that you want it, basically you forgiven them or anything. It's something personal. It's something that happens within. It's something that your heart, when your heart says, I want to let it go. It's not something that can be forced on you, or it's not something that somebody can basically say, okay, I'm going to put the handcuffs and I want you to forgive somebody. No, it's something that happens natural, and when you release that pain, when you forgive someone, it actually you release everything. But some people, they will try to hide their scars if they've been hurt. Some people hide in a way that they want to reconstruct themselves by using plastic surgery, basically for just to remove that loop from them, the one that they have, thinking that everything is gonna be different. But you don't have to hide your scars. You don't have to feel ashamed about it. You don't have to feel guilty about it. It happened, it happened. Forgiveness, it doesn't mean that you forget. It is you acknowledging, like Dr. Biggett, you were saying, acknowledge that it happened. You will not forget about it, but when you still feel like hurt, that means you still have to work on it. But when you actually forgive and let it go and freeing yourself, forgiveness is a freedom. Basically, you're giving yourself freedom. Some people, they go through physically, emotionally abuse. Some people go through sexually abuse, but they've never asked for that. Some people go through problems with the parents. When growing up, you go through problems with your parents. You never ask for it. But why should you be ashamed? Tell your story, work on your healing. Once you work on your healing, help others by telling your story, telling them the process, how this is how I did it, this is how I went through healing, so somebody else can go through healing. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to, uh, like most of the people that are basically that go through abuse. Sometimes if you've not got healing, when it does affect your life because it creates a block, it creates a stagnation. So basically, that means you have to, if you've been abused physically or emotionally or sexually, it will obviously affect you in that relationship that you'll be entering. So you need to go through healing. And also, the healing is a process. No one says, okay, right now we're forcing you to go through healing. But if you see that this person that has wronged you and it's affecting your life, why not do something about it? Because you can be free. Over to you, Dr. Bigot. Can't hear you.
Let me remember to unmute as I start to speak, right? And I love that it is going through healing, and and even if it is one thing I want to say, because sometimes, yes, when it's something that somebody else is has done, we can say, okay, we didn't ask for that, and something happened. So, but even if it is something that you did, you choose to do, even if it's something you chose to do, and you did it in such a way, now, whether a year later, 10 years later, 30 years later, you look back and you say, oh my goodness, why did I do that when I was 13? Why did I do that when I was 23 or whatever? And you consciously did this. Notice that you did things. In general, everyone, and that includes you, do what they think is best to do at the moment. So you looking back, yes, it's always easy to look back and say, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, da, 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 da. But as a human nature, even people, now this might be something that's hard to swallow for some people, but even people who says go and stole something, in their mind, for whatever reason, they don't see other outlet. They don't see other ways of doing things. That is all they can say. Oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to embezzle money. That's the way they can see on for them to be able to have the answers for the love that they are seeking. And so, two things I want to share. One is, if you did something that you say, "Gee, that was such a what have you word that you're going to put in there," know that you've done the very best you could at the moment. I know, given my work in as a grief transformation, it's one of the things that many people come to me is says, I wish I have not given up that child. And that can be for some women a lifelong trauma. And every single one that I asked, I said, did you do that out of malice? Because did you really think that that was the best for the child and everybody else? They're like, oh, it's absolutely 100% the best for the child. And in many cases, the childs live very, very happily now in a magnificent family and all this thing. And they themselves able to do a lot of great work that it couldn't have happened in their mind if they were keeping the child. And so that is one thing that is something that we want to keep in mind, that you do the very best you could, what on what have you that has been, regardless of, now you're looking back and say, well, why didn't I see this and why didn't I see that you did the very best you could. So allow yourself some compassion there, allows yourself some compassion. And the other part is actually to remember the book called The Course in Miracle. The Course in Miracle says every action is a call for love or an expression of love. Every action, regardless of how undesirable it is looking to you, either now or in the future, is the call for love or an expression for love. And so for certain people, you can using the example of giving away, giving up, in some people term, a child. Well, that was an expression of love to the child, so the child could grow up in your mind the best way possible, rather than being with you, and you can continue doing what you need to do so you can serve. And so every action is either an expression of love or a call for love. And you might have argued bitterly with somebody who you felt you that didn't listen to you, that you were unheard, HEARD, and you end up leaving the person. Let's say it's in a relationship. Well, what is that? That was a call for love. You want to be loved. You express that you want to be loved, and the person's not meeting your what is it that you need. And I would say in that scenario, well, it's a good thing that you did not subject yourself to where you feel there is a lack of love. So just know that everybody, you included, if you have done something, if we're talking about self-forgiveness, that you've done something, you did the best you possibly could. And that is, everything is truly either a call for love or an expression of love. Even if you look back now and say, well, I could have done differently, it's always easy to, like Steve Jobs says, it's you can connect the dot looking back, you cannot connect the dot looking forward. And so that is that. And what's your thought about that, Numsa? We have a guest in here.
I don't know, Sengas, he hasn't got a camera. Are you there, Sengas? I don't know. He's there but not there. Yes, I agree with you, Dr. Biget, when you say whatever happens, or if you've done something, you did your best. You know, some people, they do things without realizing that they are hurting people. So then you, somebody that has been hurt, you have to find that place in your heart to forgive yourself. And the hardest thing is to forgive yourself. Is basically not an easy thing. It is the hardest thing to actually forgive yourself and letting go everything. Does it mean that you're forgetting what happened? No, you don't. You can't be twitchy about it, or you can't keep reminding people about it. That means you haven't gone through proper forgiveness. So you have to actually just deal with the situation and and just break those chains, the chains of anger, the chains of regrets. Because sometimes when you go through abuse, you basically, some people might blame themselves and say, "What didn't I see that from the beginning?" Some people are good at hiding. If they are basically have done it before in the past, they are good at hiding their character if they're expecting abuse. So those who have been abused, they'll be like, why didn't I see it before? Why didn't I see the signs? Sometimes we are blinded by love. And with our parents, there are some parents who abuse their children. And it basically, you can't change who your blood is, but you can change friends. So some people will be blaming themselves that why my parents and things like that. The truth is it happened. You have to acknowledge it, like Dr. Biggett, you said, acknowledge it, deal with it, find good people that can support you. And if you do find it difficult, get professional help. There is no need for you actually to get into depression. Sometimes the person that has hurt you, they've moved on. They are living a happy life, and sometimes, and you who has been hurt, basically you keep hurting. So you have to find a way to actually to forgive. Singers, where have you gone? Oh, he keeps coming back and disappearing. Are you back? Do you want to talk? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. We can't hear you. Dr. Biggett, do you wanna take over, please? We can't hear you.
Is he muted? He's saying something.
Yeah, I know. Can you hear us? Can you wave if you can hear us?
So he can hear us.
Can you wave if you can hear us? It's not waving, that means that he can't hear us. Can you hear us? Go out and come back. Dr. Biggett, do you want to talk? That's why it's very important to come earlier so we can test the sound. Do you want to
So
go out and come back?
this is this is actually a very wonderful moment.
Yeah, Dr. Biggett, do you want to take over, please, and speak?
Yeah, yeah. So absolutely, and so this is a wonderful moment that is, for instance, even this type of moment, right? We sometimes talk about forgiveness in the big thing, in a big thing that, we did this thing happen in the past, and this happened, and so yes, there are a lot of those things that's very important to forgive, which means to release. But also as if many people forget that forgiveness is actually kind of like brushing your teeth. You got to do it practically every day and moment to moment. For instance, like right now here, this is a magnificent example that somebody, depend on what's going on, could have said, "Oh my goodness, this is not such a great thing. Oh, I wish I've done things differently, and this and that, and this and that." And so what is the moment to moment forgiveness? Perhaps it is a forgiveness where it's not like somebody was abusing you, but somebody snapped at you. Somebody snapped at you at the market, at the market, or at the office, or at a Zoom meeting, if that's how you meet people nowadays. And you're like, what the heck was that? And so what do you do in that scenario? Do you continue to allow that to simmer in you? Or do you actually say, you know what, who knows what's going on in that person's life? Or perhaps it's the opposite way. Perhaps you notice that I did this a couple of weeks ago. Somebody did certain things, and I'm like, God, just and then later on I look back and I said, I absolutely could have been gentler. I absolutely could have been gentler. And so what do you do in that moment? Then what you want to do is to just say, okay, you know what? I did the best I could. If it's something that you are able to go, and in this particular example with me, I went back to the person and said, you know what, I noticed that I could have say what I am to say in a gentler manner and in a more compassionate, more gentler manner. And so I apologize for that. So do that. But you want to do this forgiveness, not just for the yes, for the big thing, but also even as importantly, to do the day-to-day thing, like the brushing teeth, keeping in mind, like Alexander Pope, which is actually the British poet, says that to err is human. To err is human. So it's normal and it's human, if you are a human being, to create what we perceive as mistakes, or whether you do it or somebody else do it. To err is human, to forgive divine. And so it's absolutely up to you. What is it that you choose? Are you going to say, I always use the analogy of clear up to clear up the small flicker of fire. If any, the one thing that I recommend is at the end of the day, at the end of every day, as you go to sleep, just say, it's okay. What is it that I can clear up today? What can I brush off? Like cleaning your teeth. What can you clear up? What can you do from your spiritual body? What shower can you do for your spiritual body, and allow yourself to the freedom, the gift and the freedom. And if it is something that bothers you and you can still do, great, do something about it. If it is something you absolutely cannot do anything about, well, then that's when we want to return to the meaning of forgiveness by the Grief Recovery Institute, which is to let go of your wish that thing happened differently, and simply use it as a lesson for the next time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot Sangas. Are you there? Are you there? Okay. I actually are you there? Can you speak now? Sangas, can you speak? Can you speak? Or if you can hear us, at least type, say something. Type if you can hear us. Type and let us know you can hear. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Yeah, I understand, Dr. Bigot. Maybe unmute yourself. Try to check your audio and see if his audio is not good. That's why it's very important. Yesterday, he promised to come in early to test his audio. Yeah, forgiveness is moment to moment, Dr. Bigere. I do actually agree with you. Basically, you have to trust. If you are dealing, basically, some people that have hurt us, they are dead. They are no longer with us anymore. And some people, they've moved away. They are no longer with us anymore. So we are left to dealing with the offense. Basically, so it is very, very important to basically acknowledge what you're going through, and also not to let anyone actually hold, have a hold over you, because if you don't deal with forgiveness, and if you leave unforgiveness, if unforgiveness is not dealt with, it can create so many things. It can create sickness. Unforgiveness creates sickness. Unforgiveness, it creates basically depression. It creates anxiety. It creates so many things. But if you say, okay, I acknowledge this is what happened, but I'm going to forgive the person that has hurt me, or I'm going to pray about it. There are some people who are Christian who are struggling to forgive, because when you get hurt, sometimes you can ask, where is God? You can ask the questions basically and start doubting yourself and start doubting God as well. Like people, you start saying, if God is there, how come He let me get hurt? But which is because the process, if you don't know the process, and but if you know the process of basically forgiveness, you will know that whatever you go through, God will not interfere your life if you believe that this is your life. Sometimes we choose the wrong partners, we choose the wrong spouse, where basically that can end up abusing us, or sometimes we are born with parents that end up basically abusing us, or rejection. Sometimes it can be hard, or sometimes there were things that parents should have done it, should have protected us when we were children, but they didn't. So we basically struggle. When you're older, you struggle to forgive that person, but you have to basically, in order for you to be free, because unforgiveness basically it's a stronghold. It's a stagnation. It's basically you have to release yourself from that prison. You have to basically break the chains that have been planted in your life, and uproot whatever. As long as you acknowledge the situation where the problem started, then you'll be able to actually go into the roots of the problem and just break the chains and uproot anything that you didn't want in that moment, because no one asked to be abused. No one asked to be. Some people will blame themselves. Imagine and say, I feel like I've asked for it. No one asked to be abused. No one asked to be rejected. No one asked to basically to be rejected by their parents. So you have to, the list goes on and on and on and on. So when you basically, that's why we talk about writing your own story. When you're older, you have to write your own story. Or even if you've gone through a relationship abuse, you have to write your own story and acknowledge the pain, acknowledge that I'm gonna let it go of this person that entered my life and hurt me, and let them go in your heart, and let God bring the judgment to the throne of grace. If you feel that we can't revenge against those who have hurt us, because if you say I'm going to revenge, there are some people basically sometimes they split up with their exes, and then you see them on social media. They'll be like following their exes and letting everyone know how bad they are. Letting everyone know how bad they are. But what they don't realize is actually that person has no knowledge of a relationship, because a relationship requires knowledge. Or if that person has rejected you, the person who rejected you, basically it means they have some stuff to deal with it. So you have to be happy and be glad that actually they rejected you, and so that they don't waste your time. So there's so many things that happened. Like myself, there's so many things that when I look back, sometimes I'm like, God is good. He pulled me through that situation. I will still be in that situation. So sometimes I look at it and now I laugh because I have let it go. And even when I meet those who have hurt me, I don't feel hurt anymore, because I have dealt with it and I've forgiven myself. And when you forgive yourself for the pain that you've gone through, or sometimes it might be something that you've done or you've had someone. So you just have to find courage to actually let it go and forgive yourself. And I love when somebody tells me I've upset them, I apologize. But I don't want, because sometimes you can speak to somebody in a different way. And if you look at the world, Dr. Bigot, no one agrees with anyone. Honestly, no one agrees with anyone, but we just have to find a way to understand people's beliefs and values, and understand people's lifestyle and their culture as well. And so no one will agree anyone, but we have to respect their decision, their choices in life, which people don't do that. They will be very, very happy to tell you what they think about you. Even if it means hurting your feelings. So for me, basically now, when I look at somebody, I have to think, number one, this person, they believe what they're believing, their beliefs. It means a lot to them. Their values means a lot to them. So all I gotta do is just try to understand if I can actually work around this person instead of basically trying to fight with that person. Or if I'm in an abusive, sometimes I don't know if you've ever been in an abusive friendship. I move away straight away. But before, I'll just stay and hoping things will get better. I'm like, oh, I'm meeting this person, but this person is very abusive. But I'm hoping that one day things will get better. But they don't. If you don't deal with it, they don't. If you don't move away from that situation, it doesn't. So those are the kind of things that you have to look out to your friends. If they are hurting you, just move away. Over to you, Dr. Pigan. What happened to Sengas? Sengas. Oh, wow. I think it's the connection, network connection.
Yeah, maybe it's the internet connections or something. But you
Yeah,
mentioned
he is in Nigeria. So,
yeah, a lot of time they can have
yeah.
challenging internet connection. But you mentioned earlier, I love this because some people say, well, okay, I have this some people that says, yeah, but why would I bother forgiving? Because I mean, it sounds it's like I don't care about being, and I have clients who says I don't care about being a good person. That is not. That's not for me. I don't care about it, and so why there is a need for forgiveness? Well, that comes to two things basically. One is if your guilt or anger, whichever it is, toward yourself or somebody else is actually beneficial for you, then you don't need to forgive. There are people who there are people who actually uses the guilt or the anger as a fuel to be better and able to do it in such a way that it doesn't become a trigger. Now there is a huge difference that if you're using it to be better and it still trigger you, it's make you fuming and something happen and you snap or something happen and you retrieve, then it's still not the but not 100% just pure benefits. But now some people actually somehow able to walk the fine line of they still have their in their mind this is happened or that happened or they did that or they did that and they have still a little bit of a guilt in there or a little bit of an anger in there and you actually able to simply purely take the benefit to fuel you to do what it is that is allow you to be even better, work better, be kinder, what have you it is, and not affected by it in any other way. That in other words, your heart is open in every other way. Then by all means, you don't, there is nobody has an obligations to forgive. Now, on the other hand, if that is not the case, even if you say, yeah, well, it does fuel me, but it's also keep me awake at night, something like that then that's when you want to forgive. Why? Because it's as Nums mentions there, when you have something weighing you, everything is connected in our body. Our emotional, spiritual, and physical body is connected. And so, if there is one part of it that is not cleaned up, so to say, then it is something where it will connect to the other thing in your body. It will be something that manifests first of all typically in your results. So this is love month. February is the month for love, and we're inviting you to join the challenge for Valentine Day challenge, and that is to love. And so if there is something in your life that you still have anger, or something in your life you still have resentment or guilt about, then you're not allowing your heart to be fully free. You're not allowing your heart. At the end of the day, all forgiveness come from the heart, and all unforgiveness sits in your heart. Kind of like if you ever think about, you think about a vessel or something like that. Imagine this is your heart here, a vessel, and you have dirt. That's what unforgiveness is. You have dirt sitting on the bottom of it. Well, actually, I mean, in that scenario, you can have all the love, you can meet all the people that you want to meet, and all these things. And at some point, you are stopping it by things that is, when somebody is coming in with a wonderful true love and so forth. If even the slightest thing, if you ever have this sitting a sediment in the bottom of your vessel, the slightest thing like that, it will turn all over, and then it will contaminate and taint it, the whole thing. Then this is the same thing if you want a relationship that is wonderful, that whatever it's sitting inside of you, the slightest trigger, that's what trigger is. The trigger is unresolved grief, and that's usually still has resentment or guilt or something about slightest thing, slightest, the person does the slightest thing, the person's come in late for 10 minutes, and you and wasn't able to call for multiple reasons, perhaps a bad connection and things like that. And if you still have this thing from the past relationship, you might actually react it instead of respond it in that moment and blow up. Now here goes your wonderful, would otherwise would have been a wonderful lifelong relationship early on, and so that's why you want to forgive. Not to mention knowing that everything connected, if it's continue to bother you from day to day to day, well, we know that's what's in your emotional heart can actually truly affect your physical heart, as well as it's affect your blood pressures and your the way your muscle work, your nervous system, and everything else. And so what is it that you might be able to forgive today? And some of us would be having the first reaction saying, there's nothing else, I've done my forgiveness. And so that is perhaps true, and perhaps you are one of the person that practice forgiveness every single night. That is awesome. Kudos to you. Please share in the comment below what it is that you practice. But for us, even for all of us who does that already, then we want to say, what can we still forgive? Because we know that forgiveness is like brushing our teeth. It's a day-to-day, everyday thing. So what is it that you can, if you've done your forgiveness for yesterday, what is it that you'd want to perhaps sometimes still coming from the past that we buried, or just be mindful on what it is that you might want to promptly forgive as it's happened today and in the future.
So much. Thank you so much. Sengas, are you still there? Still having problems, no connection. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bidet. I like it when you say our body, everything in our body is connected. If the body, one of organ in our body is not functioning well, and everything gets affected. I love that because I think that is the reason why people, you have to go through the forgiveness, because if you don't, one body, you feel the anxiety, then the whole body shuts down. So is very important. And also you talk about how we respond in the situation as well is very, very important, because if you are someone who has been hurt before, I've been hurt myself, I've been wounded, and some people will say, oh no, I've not been wounded, because they're ashamed of what they've gone through, or they're ashamed of telling their story. For me, I've been wounded. I've dated men who came back to me. You talk to a man and everything is fine, and you date them, and then a few months later they're like, I don't think I want to continue. It's not me. It's not you. It's me. And then they're like, I'm like, you are having a laugh. And sometimes I look back with life. I'm like, this was a blessing. But you don't realize that that is a blessing. I've made friends sometimes, and things don't go well. I've had friends actually that told me that sometimes, when you make friends, and then you have a busy life. For me, the friends that I have is the friends I've known these people for 20 years, maybe 30 years, because I don't have expectations when it comes friendship. If I have a friend with somebody, we hang out when they are free. But if they're not free, I'm not that person that holds people and saying you don't want to go out with me today. They hold them captivity and stuff. So I'm somebody, I live my life. Basically, I love people. I love being around people. But if my friends tell me they're busy, I do understand, and I don't hold them captivity. So you go through rejection with people, you go through so many things with people, and just betrayal. But all you got to do is just you have to look at life as life is a game, and don't hang around with people like that. I know the Bible says that we shall love one another, but you don't have to hang around. You can love people from the distance. If somebody is scarring you over and over and over, you can love them from distance without basically putting a stronghold in your heart. You can just forgive and love them from the distance and just live your life and be free, and break those chains that basically are holding you. And Jesus basically rolled away the stone, and Lazarus came back to life. And no matter how big your scar is, that's what I'm trying to say basically. No matter how big your scar is, it can be healed only if you want to. If you want it to be healed, no matter whatever you've been through in life, you can break those chains only if you want to. Everything, you have a final say. Basically, everyone has a final say with how they want to live their lives and how they want to basically lead their lives. Because the talk show, we help people find their own voice and lead from within. We talk about the stories, what we've been through. We talk about how we ended up creating Gossip Talk shows, the things that pandemic, basically the things that basically made us basically get creative. Sometimes you can find an experience, and that you can find yourself in a complicated situation, and that complicated situation, it can be a breakthrough in your life. So you just have to be somebody that is basically willing to forgive and willing to live your life how you should live it. Live your life. Angus, are you there? Are you there?
All right. I wouldn't know if you can hear me now, but I think I've tried joining via several platforms.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So basically, sorry for the for whatever inconveniences I might have caused in the course of the conversation. So I tried joining through my system. It wasn't working. Now I think my mobile device is working it out. All right. So good afternoon from here. Dr. Bridget, I think you made a very great point. Of course, when I couldn't hear, I mean, when I couldn't, join via my audio, I tried listening to you carefully and I paid attention to some of the things you were saying. So one of the things you mentioned was staying in a relationship that is abusive. So I actually jotted it down to make sure I do not forget that point. All right. So and of course, I must say that in the African context, this is very rampant. Especially you see it's happening almost everywhere in Nigeria, where you see um, even as a married couple in relationships, you see a man and a woman. The man is abusing the woman, probably in the name of being married. And according to the traditional beliefs, and let me point your attention to this, in the northern region of Nigeria, Sharia law. I read in one of the in one abuse, but they don't say it's an abuse. So they say that a man can actually, her his wife as a way of rebuking or correcting her, and that is legally that is legally accepted. The day I discovered that, I was like, seriously, in this country on earth, so somebody can actually beat his wife up, and he's really backed up by the law, and that would be tagged as correcting her. It's crazy. It's really crazy. You are hurting the woman's emotion. You are making her somewhat similar to an inanimate object. You are hurting her emotion, you are giving her mental stress, you are hurting her physically, a lot of things, psychologically, and all of that. And then the woman still has to stay back in the relationship. It's really crazy. But that's in a part of the nation, too, not general. All right. So, but for me, one of you mentioned was, I think that was earlier at the time I joined, that when somebody hurts us, we need to learn how to forgive. You said that forgiveness is something that has to come from our hearts. We have to let go of them, and unforgiveness actually hurts us. You said it can make someone fall sick. So you should know I actually followed all of that, and I think they are very, very true. When
I don't know what happened to Sengas. Do you have any words of encouragement? I've got to leave by 2. I've got another meeting.
I think he's frozen again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say my word of encouragement, my message would be, it, forgiveness is just not, it's not just so you are all you are like holy or something. It's actually important for you in your emotional and physical health, and also in creating the love that you would love in your life. Back to our opening earlier, in creating the love that you want, because you want to allow yourself a clean slate. You want your heart to be a clean vessel. And if you say, yeah, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, and yes, I have tried to forgive, I actually do want to forgive. It starts with your decisions, like everything else. You got to decide you want to do that. But then if you decide and you still have some challenge, that's what we're here for. NUMSA being a love harmonist and a counselor, as well as myself being a grief specialist. I was sharing the other day, one of the key things of being able to be a grief transformation specialist is to be able to help people forgive, because that is a key in being able to move forward and have freedom in your life, freedom to create whatever you want to do, whether it's financial, whether it's love, even health, because again, the unforgiveness will manifest physically. So something that you want to do for yourself, and if you don't know how to do them well, then on your own easily, then reach out for help, and that way you'll be able to create what you love to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Biget Sengas. Your network will not let me put you in. Not sure why. So, like Dr. Biget says, we're here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. Please join us and follow us on our social media and live with grace, everyone, and God bless.